This is the dedication of the James Bethel Graham Commemoration, Friday, November 3rd, 2017. This is the 100th anniversary of the United States getting into World War I. James Gresham was the first warrior killed in World War II. There were 3 warriors killed about the same day, but as historians say, James Gresham was our first person killed. In Evansville, he was actually buried about 1923, but during this time, after his death, they did have a ceremony and a wake at the newly built Coliseum, which was built about 1916, and supposedly 10 to 20,000 people passed his grave. It was a big loss for Evansville to lose the first soldier in World War I, James Bethel Gresham, and this is a commemoration of the 100th anniversary of World War I in Evansville, Indiana, and we're at the Locust Hill Cemetery, and James Gresham's grave is right behind the podium there.
Order. Please be seated.
I'm off the seat.
We have a number of honored guests here today. On our left is Dr. James McLeod from the Evansville Museum and also the University of Evansville. Next to him is the distinguished mayor of Evansville, Lloyd Winnicky. Next we have Tommy Tucker from the Gresham family. And with all the Greshams, please raise your hand for Gresham relatives.
Wow. Great.
On this side we have George Patton Waters. Next, George Patton Waters is the grandson of General Patton, and his father was also a 4-star Army officer, John Waters. And next to him is Terry Hamby, who is the chair of the National World War I Centennial Mission of the United States. And then General Consul LaCroix, representing the French Republic, is here today joining us. And with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mayor Winnicky.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the coolest, breeziest spot in the city of Evansville. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. Anyway, good afternoon and thank you for joining us at Locust Hill Cemetery for this really spectacular occasion. I'd like to welcome all the local and visiting dignitaries who took time out of their day to reflect on the life of James Bethel Gresham and the ultimate sacrifice that he made 100 years ago so that we have the freedoms that we all enjoy and embrace so dearly today. Special thanks to Jim and the Indiana World War I Centennial Committee for organizing today's event. It took a lot of work and coordination to bring all of us here today, some coming from all parts of the country. And in the case of the distinguished French Consul General coming to from Chicago, we appreciate your representation here today as well. And to recognize George Patton Waters, again, the grandson of General George Patton, and to Deep Black Hines for the research on James Bethel Gresham that led her to his living descendants, many of whom are here today. Before we continue with the program, I would like to make a special announcement that we think is very fitting for where we are standing and seated today. Locust Hill Cemetery has been dedicated as the James Bethel Gresham Arboretum, earning Level 1 National Arboretum accreditation status. The Arboretum provides a quiet, healing place for mourners while promoting an urban green space. I'd like to extend my special thanks to members of the City of Evansville staff who worked so diligently to get this designation, specifically Evansville Cemetery Superintendent Chris Cook, and Urban Forestry Director Sean Dickerson and City Grant Manager Donna Bergman, all of whom are here today. Their dedication and hard work to this is really very, very commendable. Again, thank you for being here today. This is a special time of the year as we begin to celebrate the great sacrifices that all veterans have made and continue to make on our behalf. And to be here to celebrate James Bethel Gresham is very special, not just for the people here, but for our entire city. And on behalf of the city of Evansville, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this wonderful celebration. Jim.
Thank you very much. And I am remiss in not introducing two members of the Indiana World War I Commission that are here today. Judge Jim Osborne from Vincennes, who runs the Indiana Military Museum. And somewhere, there you are, Elizabeth Howard, who represents the Daughters of the American Revolution on the State Commission. So thank you very much for being here. Our next guest is the Consul General of the French Republic, Mr. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your warm welcome to Evansville, Indiana. I am Guillaume Lacroix, the French Consul General in the Midwest. I'm based in Chicago and I cover 13 states in the Midwest. This is my third time in Indiana, but my first time in Evansville, and definitely not the last time. I am deeply honored and proud to be here with you today as the representative of the French Republic, representative of France, the oldest ally of the United States, and I'm very proud of that. We helped you gain your independence, and you saved us 2 times in the 20th century. World War I, you helped us a lot win against the enemy. And World War II, it was just enormous what you did. What your fathers and mother, grandparents did for us. Not only you win battles after battles, but you gave us freedom, independence, and you liberated villages after villages in 1944. Without you, I would not be here today. Without you, I would not live in a free and independent country. So thank you, America. Thank you, Indiana. We're here today to honor the memory of James Bethel Gresham. He is a hero who made the ultimate sacrifice for his country, but also for my country. And I want to thank all the Hoosiers, the soldiers, the doughboys, the doughgirls, the nurses, the civilians who bought war bonds to help us win. And the story of Mr. Corporal, Mr. James Bethel Gresham, Corporal Gresham, is famous here, but it is maybe even more famous in France, because the region where he was killed in action keep the memory alive of himself and his 2 companions who died with him. There is even a monument that was erected nearby. It was destroyed by the Germans in World War II and was rebuilt after World War II. But before coming here today, I made a phone call to the elected official, the super mayor, if you will, of the county where Mr. Gresham was killed. We spoke yesterday in the car. And he asked me to deliver a message of friendship, of deep gratitude of his region and his community. And he also told me, and I want to make the announcement today, and I'm very proud of the announcement, that they are going to build another monument at the very place where Corporal Gresham was killed. And when the monument will be there, I hope you will be able to visit my country and this very place to honor our joint history of friendship and alliance. I would like to mention two other heroes from this region. Alexander Arch of South Bend, Indiana, who fired the first American shot on October 23rd, 1917. And I also would like to mention Lieutenant Aaron Fisher, the most highly decorated African-American soldier from Indiana to serve in World War I. Indiana is a country of heroes, obviously. It is important that we transmit the memory of the conflicts to the younger generation, to future generations, and hopefully we will learn from history. In my country, we've learned from history, and now Germany is not only a friend, it's a very, very good friend of France. It's an ally of the United States. We are all together. And I want to recognize that. In World War II, we defeated Germany, but we defeated the Nazis. The enemy were not the Germans, the enemy were the Nazis. And together, we destroyed them. But Germany now is a friendly country, and the French representative in Indiana is based in Indianapolis. He's my representative. He's a German national. His name is Martin Bayer, and I came to Indianapolis 2 weeks ago to install him as the honorary consul of France. You see the progress we've made. And I think this is a symbol. It's not only a symbol, it's also a demonstration of what Europe is today, European Union. We're together with you, America, to protect our values, to defend our people, and protect our freedom in these very, very challenging times. We're together. We're not afraid of the people who want to destroy us. We will defeat them. So again, it's been a great honor. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for having me. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Evansville. Thank you, Indiana.
Thank you very much, sir. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, George Patton Waters.
Good morning, and thank you all. Can you hear me okay? Thank you all for being out here. I'm so honored to have been included. I'm nowhere in the world like the families here are. I was just born into the situation in which I am. I'm a former naval officer also, despite my family's Army history. One thing I wanted to tell you, though, in studying Corporal Gresham, he served with my grandfather. How do I know that? Because in 1916, Corporal Gresham was, as a private, was selected to go on to the punitive expedition into Mexico. My grandfather led that effort to go down there and to try to kill or capture Pancho Villa. He was not successful in finding the Pancho Villa, but he found a couple other people. And as we heard last night, he did his thing, and he returned along with Corporal Gresham with some squad cars with the deceased Mexicans strapped across the hood. Drove through Fort Sill, and I think that's probably why Corporal Gresham and General Patton, or then Captain Patton were promptly sent over to, in 1916 or 1917, to the First World War. And so this young man was a hero long before he arrived in your beautiful country of France, and long before things had happened. But to come here and see that you all are remembering and honoring a soldier who made the ultimate sacrifice, not by choice, but yes, by choice, because he enlisted and he went and he served his country. It would be no greater honor than for us to look at his stone and realize he gave his life, he gave it all, and he is a great American, and for that I am humbled to be in the presence of especially one of his family, Mr. Tucker, right? And that's good. You still look great. So I just want to thank you on behalf of the Patton family for allowing me to take a moment to participate on this beautiful, windy, cold hill. South Carolina does have a couple of small hills, but not this cold. I thank you very much. I salute you for your contributions and your efforts to remember those who have served and to continue to remember the legacy of those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And now I'd like to introduce the chair of the World War I National Centennial Committee, Terry Hamby.
You know, as a lifelong soldier and supporter of the young men and women we have in uniform that are serving around the world today, it always touches my soul and it inspires me to be among so many veterans and men and women who care so much about our country and the one that they fight and defend. As a veteran, I'm honored to be a part of this great and noble cause of educating Americans about the Great War and the sacrifices of 4.7 million Americans who answered the call of their country. The Great War was the first time the world was engaged in conflict. It was a time when the world went mad. The invention of weapons of mass destruction such as submarines and machine guns and tanks and gas and the extensive use of artillery and airplanes outpaced the training the commanders had, that our commanders had, and we sustained unthinkable casualties. Europe lost almost an entire generation of young men. America entered the war in 1917, as President Wilson so eloquently stated, bring peace and safety to all nations and make the world itself at last free. General Pershing arrived in France with the first doughboys in June of 1917. Bethel Gresham was with the first doughboys to deploy to France. The doughboys were there to bring peace. Though most hadn't visited Europe in their life, or most had not met any of the people that they were giving their lives for to defend liberty and peace. There was over 4 million doughboys in uniform and 2 million strong in Europe. And they went there once again to defend liberty and peace for others. America lost over 116,000 men and women, and countless others suffered terrible injuries and emotional problems. But World War I and their efforts created the war that we live in today. The Middle East, the Balkans, North Africa were all part of the Ottoman Empire, and they were realigned as we know them today after World War I. One of our missions in the World War I Centennial Commission is to build a national memorial. For 100 years, the 116,516 veterans, that's more than Korea and Vietnam combined, who, like Corporal Gresham, gave their lives in defense of this country, and the countless others who suffered horrible physical and emotional injuries, and the other millions who answered their call of our nation have been forgotten by America. It's a national tragedy that the millions of veterans of the Great War, who were the parents of the greatest generation, have not been memorialized in our nation's capital. On November the 9th, 2017, next week, we will break ground to start the process of erecting a memorial in Pershing Park alongside their leader, General John J. Pershing, the commander of the American Expeditionary Force. This will be America's memorial, and I hope you, as all Americans, will help us in the centennial of this great war make this possible. In 1915, after the occasion of conducting the funeral of an officer in his command, Major John McRae, I'm sure filled with emotion, penned in Flanders Field. As a veteran, the last verse has always served as my inspiration to never forget the sacrifices of our men and women in uniform who continue to defend liberty and peace. McRae finished that poem with a plea for the soldier that he had just buried. And it goes, "Take up our quarrel with our foe. To you, from failing hands we throw the torch. Be it yours to hold it high. And if you break the faith with those of us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies blow in Flanders Field." With our groundbreaking ceremony on November the 9th, our nation starts the process of keeping the faith for those veterans of World War I. Thank you.
Before we hear from the family, I wanted to mention, if any of you were to travel to Indianapolis today, at the War Memorial in the center of the city, there's a cenotaph, which is an unused tomb. And that cenotaph was built 90-some years ago for James Bethel Gresham. So the state had intended to have him buried up in Indianapolis at the War Memorial. But Alice Dodd, James Bethel Gresham's mother, wanted him here in Evansville, where he lived, close to where she lived. And so that's what's happened. But there was a ceremony today in Indianapolis to mark, to also commemorate him. And I believe there's a ceremony tomorrow you'll have to say it.
I didn't know.
I don't know French, so. Yeah. So, but at the site of the battle, there's having a ceremony in France as well, and then ours. But also, if you were to go to Indianapolis and you were to walk into Governor Merrick Holcomb's office, his actual original office where his desk is, he actually works from, on the wall is a portrait of James Bethel Gresham hanging today. And it will be there till March. So don't tell Governor Holcomb I said this, but you should all come up. Just knock on the door. Tell him you were here. No, he's thrilled to have you come up. And it would be, I think it's important for all of you, especially the Gresham family, to see the tribute that the state is paying to Mr. Gresham. So with that, sir, Mr. Tucker, I'm about to call you up. So if you would, we have Tommy Tucker representing the family and speaking to us today. Mr. Tucker.
Now, my understanding was that I got the rest of the 1 hour that wasn't used. As I sat here and looked out, I was reminded, I'm from Kentucky, but my grandmother, who was James' older sister, lived here in Evansville. So many trips were made here to spend time with her. And of course, she would relate to us through very teary, emotional, her recollections of her younger brother. But as I sat here and looked out, I was reminded of a story I heard about Eastern Kentucky. A couple of brothers, they were the meanest rascals this side of the Mississippi. They were terrible. And they owned virtually the whole town. And it was a coal mining town, so they had to come to the store and everything. Well, one of them died, and they couldn't get a preacher to do the funeral. So they looked and looked, and finally they got together and they said, we'll give $150,000 to any church that will, oversee the ceremony for the departed. So the day of the service came, and everybody turned out, not necessarily in grief. They wanted to see who this fool was who was going to do the ceremony. So the time of the ceremony came, and the preacher got up, and he said, I'm grateful you're here. It's so nice to see so many people. And he said, I know you're concerned over why I would take on the responsibility of this sermon. And he said, but I'm going to tell you the truth. He said, the reason was very simple. There was a stipend. And he said, all I have to do is say something nice about the dearly departed. He said, well, I have to tell you, he was a mean, ornery scoundrel. By compared to his brother, he was a true saint. I'm both humble and honored to be with you this afternoon. I'm very proud of my family, the little sector that scattered between Louisville and Maryland and Florida and Georgia. I think we have like 19 or 20 out of the 25 are here, and I'm very proud of the fact. I think it's great that our young people are made aware of the sacrifices that have been made down through the years. When I watch football on Sunday afternoon, I'm appalled, but I'm also hurt that people who are enjoying the benefits of others take the flag as an opportunity to stage their own personal agenda. I'm sorry, I'm politicizing. I told my wife I wouldn't do that. But returning to the heartland, I am so impressed by what I see here today and by the turnout of so many of you who are just ordinary citizens but have a warm spot in their heart for those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. On behalf of the family, if I may be so presumptuous, I thank you for being here. It means a lot, and I can't wait to meet family members at some point this afternoon. It's been a long time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. And at this point, what I would like to do is we will be placing some wreaths. And so if the dignitaries, all of you would be kind enough to place the wreath at this burial site of Bethel Gresham, which is where the U.S. flag is supposed to. It's not on
Way down there. These guys have their camera good. Got it back on if you want to. Be careful here.
I don't know if you. I asked could I put my CAR one there, and he said yeah. So I guess I better just wait and go by my. Can you take my picture? I need a picture.
And if the daughters would please lead our way to Alice Dodd Gresham.
What else is that?
I have one more thing to say before we get to the gun salute. At this point, so that you know, there's going to be a gun salute, so don't worry. Honor the dead. Would you please rise?
Yeah.
Please be seated, for those of you who can. We did all that exercising to try and warm you up, so I hope you appreciated that. Before we have our closing remarks from Dr. McLeod, I wanted to present something on behalf of Governor Holcomb. The state is grateful to the family for being here today, but for our other out-of-state visitors or honored guests, it's my privilege on behalf of Governor Holcomb to provide 3 awards. Mr. Patton? Mr. Patton Waters. On behalf of Governor Holcomb, an honorary Hoosier. Congratulations. behalf of the Governor of Indiana, congratulations, you are an honorary Hoosier. And Mr. Hamby, even though you're from Kentucky, it's my great pleasure to present you on behalf of Governor Bill Bay, also an honorary Hoosier. Thank you very much.
Loves our country, and for people who make so many sacrifices, and Heartland is called the Heartland for one reason, and you have a fairly decent basketball
I want to thank the family, the honored guests, Chris Cook, who is up there. Chris, would you raise your hand? Chris is responsible for the cemetery and helping us put this together today. The DAR, of course, the mayor's office, who is instrumental in planning this, and the veterans organizations that are here today. My privilege now is to introduce Dr. James McLeod from the Evansville Museum of Art, History, and Science, and a professor at the University of Evansville.
Thank you. I'm from Scotland, but I've been here for almost 20 years, so I think I'm already an honorary Hoosier. The city of Evansville has been remembering their World War I dead for almost 90 years.
Can you sit down, please?
On November 11, 1928, the city of Evansville unveiled its first memorial to the dead of the First World War. And at that occasion, a representative of the University of Evansville spoke, the president of Evansville College, Earl Harper. And he said, "We must do away with this madman, the institution called war." And he expressed the fervent hope that not in 100 years shall the heroism of youth again be called upon the battlefield. These were hopeful words, but as we know, it didn't quite turn out like that. This morning, as we gather here in gratitude and remembrance of James Bethel Gresham, I think it's important to think about the meaning of war cemeteries and war memorials. And I believe that their purpose ultimately is to draw our minds back to the men and the women who fight our wars. As politicians and citizens and historians, we can argue and debate the rights and wrongs of this war or that war, but in the end, perhaps what we can agree on is a commitment to appreciate the sacrifice of our veterans. I believe that the words of another mayor, Mayor Bernard Dickman of St. Louis, speaking when the St. Louis World War I Memorial was opened in 1938, have great potency for us today. He said, "We who live because others have died should make of this shrine a place of love and a monument of peace." As we remember with gratitude the sacrifice, as we remember with gratitude the sacrifice of James Bethel Gresham, perhaps we could all make of this shrine a place of love and a monument of peace. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Evansville Museum of Arts, History, and Science, I'd like to thank all of you for your attendance today, especially the family of James Bethel Gresham. And I'd like to thank all of the dignitaries for their eloquent and moving words. On a more practical level, I'd also like to invite all of you to a reception at the Evansville Museum. That museum will include a welcome from our director, Brian Nicely, and a curator's tour from the curator of history, Tom Lonberg, of the magnificent World War I exhibit that is currently showing at the museum. And maybe most importantly of all, there will be refreshments available provided by the Captain Henry Vanderburg chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So in closing, I just want once again to thank all of you for coming out on a cold day and helping us as a city remember the sacrifice of one of our most honored sons. Thank you.
We want to thank all of you for coming today. Please pay tribute to James Bethel Gresham and the sacrifice he made. Thank you for the family, and I hope you'll all join us at the reception at the museum. Thank you.